This one is a resource we use all the time. It is something we are trained to do from little kids. Society shows us how to do it. Society puts it on us. Limiting beliefs and labels. Now, these can be used for good or for evil. They can be used to support and manifest into great opportunity and abundance. They can also be used, which is more historically what we do with them, is we use them to stop us from getting where we have the potential to go to. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on a few things, tell you a little bit of a story too. Limiting beliefs, a great quote that I love to use all the time, I've got it on my wall, is Henry Ford. He was quoted as saying, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. That in of itself is a summation of limiting beliefs right there. Whether you believe you can finish running that marathon or you quit halfway through, it was your decision. Your limiting belief is what kept you from doing it, or your belief is what got you all the way to the end, got you doing it. Okay? Labels work the same way, whether we apply them to ourselves or we apply them to others, and this is dangerous when we get there. So here's where I want to tell you a little bit of a story around limiting beliefs and labels. So this is a personal story. So I want you to think about for a minute of being in third grade. Think all the way back, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, and all the cool things that were going on in your world. What it was to just be a kid, to be free, to be out in the world, doing what kids do, right? I was at that time in my life. I was fishing nonstop. I was hiking. I was riding my bike. I was playing with friends. I was digging in the dirt, and I was learning. I was learning how I was going to be around my entire environment. And this is a moment to where my education changed my life, and I carried it for a long time. And this was someone that I looked up to. This was my third grade teacher. Someone that I looked at as an authority figure that clearly understood everything in the world around me. They were a teacher. So I was a handful as a little kid. Not gonna lie about that, right? I was a handful as a little kid. I was a feral boy. If you think about the kid in Mad Max, the little coyote kid, I could talk a little better than him, but I wasn't a whole lot past that. So just think of that person, that little just feral child. I was a lot to control and I was a lot to handle, and I get that and I respect that. And here is where it went wrong. We were sitting at a parent-teacher conference, and I was sitting there with my parents, and I remember the conversation specifically and what followed. And the teacher said, Jake is never going to amount to anything in his life. He'll be lucky if he doesn't spend his entire life in prison because he just acts out too much. He is uncontrollable. He is not willing to learn. He's not going to learn. He's not going to grow. And it went on and on, right? And it went on and on. And she recommended I go to a specialist. And she recommended that I be medicated and I go see a psychiatrist as a third grader. And I heard this. I was sitting in the room listening to this at the time of this authority figure telling my parents this. And at the time, my parents didn't know how to respond to it. So they said, okay, we need to let him see the psychiatrist. They didn't let them medicate me, but I had to see the psychiatrist. So what that did is it reinforced that the teacher must be right. And the teacher had limiting beliefs because she was an older gal, and I was a lot to handle. And she just wanted to just say what she felt, and she said it. And she said it in front of me. I heard it, and I proceeded to carry that for 30 years. I carried it, that I will never amount to anything. I'm overactive. I have a low attention span, blah, 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 right? I heard it. I accept it as a truth, and I carried it. And it was a limiting belief. It was an absolute limiting belief. And I would love to go back. She's, since passed on. I would love to go back to that moment with who I am now. And I would love to address that and say, you know what, Mrs. Blank, That is your limiting belief. That's not a label you should put onto me such that I carry it for the rest of my life. We do it to ourselves, we do it to others, and this is where I will caution us to do it, right? We hear it all the time. I've done it, I've heard it from other people that I respect, and I just don't carry it anymore. You know what, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna race that marathon, I'm gonna ride that bike ride, I'm gonna go that far, and somebody goes, oh God, you can't do that. That's terrible. Why would you want to do that to yourself? That's just, you can't do that. That's Henry Ford. Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't. They believe they can't, but it's not for them to label you that you can't. So here's another great example, and this is a place to where we start to use it, and this is trying to kind of tie the stories together here so that you have an understanding of how we're using them. I had a coaching conversation just a couple days ago. One of my favorite clients, love him to death. And they made the comment that I have a meeting that I'm going to, and this meeting is just gonna suck. It is gonna be hard. It is gonna be uncomfortable and unpleasant. Is any of that actually true? No, none of it is actually true because it's in the future. We can't predict the future. We are applying a limiting belief to something that hasn't even happened. We are trying to predict and manifest a future that is not real. That is not real. This is where the limiting beliefs come in, right? If you're going to tell yourself this meeting is going to suck, guess how you're going to set yourself up? The little squishy thing in the back of your head is going to go, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to find all the data that supports why this is going to suck, right? There's a whole lot of people that have the limiting belief of I'm scared of heights. Have you ever fallen from a great height that gives you a reason to be damaged? No. It's a limiting belief. I'm afraid of spiders. Have you ever been bitten by a spider? Sure. You can be, there's, pain is real. There's another great movie, real serious cult, Will Smith movie called After Earth. He has a great concept in there that I just absolutely love where he talks about pain is real, fear is a choice, fear is a limiting belief. Fear of failure is a limiting belief. Fear of failure will keep you from trying to do a thing. Fail faster, man. Fail faster. Thomas Edison, how many times did he fail making a light bulb? 1,000 times. If he'd have quit after the first one because of fear of failure, we'd all be living in the dark. So just wanted to give you some concepts around limiting beliefs and how we use them and caution you against labels of your limiting beliefs and applying them to others. Others see you as an authority figure. They take what you say as gospel in a lot of cases, right? Watch it with your kids, man. It is such a painful thing to understand that we applied our limiting belief to somebody else and they said, yeah, you're right. I can't do that because they said I can't. Henry Ford, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. It's also not for you to believe somebody else can or can't. So this gets a little hard and it gets a little dark. So how do we use it to benefit ourselves? How do we reduce limiting beliefs? How do we eliminate them? How do we go to beliefs? It's an easier question than you think. The question is, what do I know to be true? Okay, so let's assume we use this one a lot, right? We're running a race. And a lot of people just believe they can never run that race. They can never do it. I could never run a marathon. Well, that's a limiting belief. And it is true for you. And what do we know to be true? As a NLP presupposition. Okay, presupposition means it's just a foundational belief. Okay, NLP foundational belief. Every single person has access to every single resource and ability that every other person does. So it isn't that this one person is just so much better at something than I am. They're deciding that they want to be so much better at that thing. They've made a belief that I'm going to focus on this and I'm going to do that. If I focused on the exact same thing, I could do that exact same thing. I have to make the decision. Is it going to be hard? Is it going to suck? Is it going to be something that I need to push through to get there? Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times, the really great things are on the other part of the part that sucks, right? Finishing a marathon, you got to pass the wall. You got to. Everybody hits it. You can talk to every great racer. I use marathon a lot. I've run one, right? I'm not a marathon runner, but I understand and I talk to people and I know people and I coach people that do it, and they do it all the time. Professionals hit it all the time. There are things that I am a professional at in this world that you have to push through the pain. You have to push through the hard, because pushing through the hard is what gets you to the awesome on the other side. Okay? Watch your limiting beliefs, pay attention to them, and this is where we'll talk about this more on your language, how you do it. Just go back to the Henry Ford quote, whether I believe I can or I believe I can't, I'm right. And what do I know to be true? Fear is a choice.